Thank you, Senator Peralta, for your leadership in the Labor Committee, Leader Sampson and my colleagues. This is truly an important issue. The city currently is also debating the issue of a living wage. This is all occurring because obviously the cost of living has skyrocketed in our state while wages have remained stagnated for many, many years, causing detrimental impact on working class New Yorkers. And raising the minimum wage will help boost demand. It will generate greater economic activity, and it will help move our economy forward. I like to call it a livable wage, not a minimum wage per se. And you know, currently there are 19 states, Alaska, Arizona, California, Colorado, Connecticut, Washington, D.C., Florida, Illinois, Massachusetts, Maine, Michigan, Montana, Nevada, New Mexico, Ohio, Oregon, Rhode Island, Vermont, and Washington State. All have a higher minimum wage than New York State, the Empire State. So this is critical. The state of Washington has a minimum wage of $9.04, while Oregon has a minimum wage of $8.80. And obviously these are states where the cost of living is not as high as New York State. So we are very concerned that New Yorkers are really struggling during this very bad economy, and that government is not doing enough to help them along. Our legislation paves the way for residents from all corners of the states to receive a livable wage through non-preemption. That means allowing governments to set, local governments, to set a higher minimum wage than the state. So for example, if New York City, which has a higher cost of living than some other areas in the state, would like to have a higher minimum wage, this piece of legislation would allow for that to happen. I think it is important. One size does not fit all. A livable wage in one region of the state may not provide for basic food and shelter in another part of the state. For example, in New York City, 1 of 4 rental households spend more than 50% on rent and utilities. So families in New York City are really struggling. They're spending over 50% of their income just on rent and utilities. So this is a crisis. Over 1.8 New York City residents are recipients of food stamps, an increase of over 50% over the past 3 years. So when we look at the minimum wage and we see the long lines at the food pantries, we can really appreciate the kind of hurt and problems that are affecting New Yorkers across the state. This bill increases the base statewide minimum wage to $8.50, and after January 1st of 2013 to $9.25. So this is reasonable. It's not a backbreaker. We don't feel that this will create an exodus of businesses or that it's a job killer, as many have wrongly asserted. For the years that follow, the bill indexes the state medium wage to a regional consumer price index, which actually depicts the cost of living, so that the minimum wage will raise at an appropriate rate. So I really urge all of my colleagues to consider this bill. This is a more progressive version of what's being discussed. Some of these provisions should be highly considered. So I ask all of my colleagues to please support Senate Bill 6335.